Right, folks, back here for another week. Just to preview the finals and just go through the results of the divisions. We're coming to the business end of the season now, thank God. So things are going to be heating up or getting interesting. So, Stevie, how's the form? How are you getting on?
Not too bad, Enda. Not too bad. Big weekend this weekend for the for all four finals. I think Saturday. I want to start off on a negative note. I suppose just before it goes out of my head, I do feel the GA missed a small trick here. Division One and Division Four on Saturday would have been perfect, and Division
Yeah,
Two and Three on Sunday. And my thinking behind that is Dublin are going to bring a crowd no matter who they play. So you have Division Two. It's very obscure to have Dublin in Division Two, and
yeah,
so that was perfect. Division Three, Sligo and Fermanagh and Cavan. Cavan will bring great support, and so will Fermanagh. But not a massive there wouldn't be 20 or 30,000 from both counties going. So it'd have been a perfect scenario, and then it would have given the Division Four final great exposure. I was involved in the Division Four final back in 2018, I think it was, with Carlow and Laois, and it just felt a bit soulless. It just felt a
yeah,
bit soulless. You're looking, you're obviously standing on the Hogan stand side, looking across at a completely empty, Cusick, and you know yourself, it's still special for the players and
yeah.
the fans are behind you and this thing, but it was very soulless. And Fermanagh played Armagh after it, and there was a bit of a crowd in for the second game, but wasn't really. It didn't really do it for me, But if that had been on before, for example, Mayo and Galway, the second half of the game would have been huge. There'd have been a big crowd, and for the exposure that those lads would have got as well, and stuff. I just think it would have added to the atmosphere for them,
Is
So
is it a case, Stephen, that the league finals are going to be out of fashion in a few years' time? Do you think they'll still go with it? Because as you said there, that the crowd's like, what will they get Saturday night for the Division 3 and 4 finals here? Like even Sunday. Sorry, what will they get on Sunday? They'll get probably 30 to 40,000 on Sunday. Will they get 30,000 on Saturday? Just about.
yeah, yeah, probably if even that, and if even that on Saturday, I think if you win the league, you win the league. I think the league finals. I think with the new format of the Super 16s, if you want to sort of call it that, and the provincials and stuff, I think the league final is getting in the way for a lot of teams.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It is
I would
this
say
year, Stevie.
there's Kerry away on a holiday, whatever, a training camp, whatever, and they've 4 weeks now sitting, cooking nicely for 4 weeks. Whereas I texted you earlier about Mayo. Will Mayo play a full team on Sunday? I know you think they will, but you're risking. Imagine Ryan O'Donoghue, not a bit touch wood. I don't want to wish it to anybody. Imagine he get injured. Imagine he pulled his hamstring on Sunday. That's Mayo's championship in jeopardy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
but the
you know
flip. To be honest, Stephen, I think they can handle a few injuries. I think we'll say the likes of no, I don't know about Killian O'Connor's story, but we say if Ryan O'Donoghue did go down, Tommy Conroy is there. There is good strength and depth this year with Mayo that I think they can manage. It is still a national title. It is, and look at we've said this before. It's not the end of the world if if they don't win the provincial.
yeah, yeah. Well,
What?
I was looking
Go
at
on,
the
sorry.
picture. I'm going to throw something at you.
Yeah,
So if you don't win Connacht, I was looking at this earlier. If you don't win Connacht, right, or don't get to the final of Connacht, you
yeah.
could end up as third seeds in a group with Dublin or Kerry or possibly the Ulster champions. So you imagine if
Mm,
just for talk's sake, say Mayo beat Roscommon, but then they lose to Galway, Mayo could find themselves in a group with Kerry, Derry, and another, and
yeah,
all of a sudden it looks a different fucking scenario. And then the other flip side of it is if you're seed one in the group, I think you get an extra break for your quarter final as well. So you get
yeah,
an extra week rest, which obviously at this level is pretty critical. So there is benefits of the provincial still. Okay, there is benefits
yeah.
still, but I do feel the provincials could die a slow death. But I think it makes Connacht so interesting this year because Galway, Mayo, and Roscommon are all on the one
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
Somebody is going to find themselves in a group of death.
Yeah.
So
Well, two of them could even
yeah, you're right. You're right. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. But I'll tell you what, right? And I'll tell you this now. You talked about a bench. I was actually doing a bit of research before we came on tonight, and I was looking at the bench. Last week Galway brought on, Comer and Rob Finnerty.
yeah,
Two two forwards, and as you know, would probably start in most county teams. Would start in most county teams. And they're bringing them off the bench, and I think that's a fucking huge sign. I think Galway have found a few nuggets this year. Obviously, getting Peter Cook back was a big plus. I know back in January there was talk of him not committing when Mike Cullen were still going on their club run. The Kelly's playing some serious stuff. Obviously, Paul Conroy for me is a brilliant footballer, really, really good leader. Is always worth 3 or 4 points a game. But Maher in the middle of the field has pushed nearly to wing forward now.
Yeah,
and it just gives them a wee different dynamic. Only thing, Enda, I'm going to say about Galway, and I called it last year, I still don't think they're sure about their goalkeeper. They're caught between Power and Gleeson, and Gleeson made a couple of errors against Galway, against Armagh. Now, he made that one mistake, but late in the game, he pulled off a fantastic save. Now, personally, from studying them over the last couple of years, just even during my time in Roscommon, I do feel that Gleeson is probably better with restarts, slightly better restarts than Power, but I maybe feel Power is a better goalkeeper, like a shot stopper. So it's nearly weighing up what's more important to you. Is it and for me, it has to be happening with a man who's the kickouts,
Yeah, I'd say like Gleeson definitely has the length and Power. Power definitely probably has that medium kick out in terms of the into the pockets of 5 and 7. He's probably a better kicker in that regard. But I suppose Gleeson has made some. I'm very conscious of. I don't like slating any players on this. I'm very conscious of that.
Absolutely not. No, really slating. I just think they're not sure who to go for as number one. And when you've got that complacentness, it can cause a wee bit of a wee bit of lack of confidence now. Now the other thing about it as well, Mayo on the flip side. I'm looking at the Donegal game here, for example. Tommy Conroy, McLaughlin, Padraig O'Hara, great experience, great quality. You're looking at Derry's bench as well. McKinless, Lachlan Murray, Shea Downey. I'm going to throw something at you. Out of all the 4 finalists on Sunday, I was looking at Dublin's bench, and I was looking at Scully, Colin Basquel, Larry, and I'm sort of thinking to myself, it wouldn't frighten you. It wouldn't frighten those boys coming on. Don't get me wrong, Scully's a class footballer. I'm not suggesting that these boys are anyway in any capacity bad footballers. They're brilliant footballers, but they just don't have that same stardust that maybe a Brogan. You imagine a Brogan coming off the bench 8 years ago, and a tired defender going, fuck me, here we go, or Monaghan or whatever. I just don't think they've got the same dynamic impact that a Tommy Conroy would have, or a Gareth McKinless, or Lachlan Murray. Lachlan Murray's a fine, one of the most promising young footballers in Ulster at the minute, And I think out of all the 4 teams on Sunday, and obviously we'll talk about Saturday, but we're talking about Sunday here. Out of all the 4 finalists on Sunday, I feel Dublin probably have the less threat coming off the bench. That's actually frightening.
That's controversial, Stevie. That is
controversial. I'm looking at the current present moment in time. I'm looking at it here now, and I'm I'm looking at Dublin's defence, of Newcombe and Larkin O'Dale in the forward line, Tom Lahiff and Lee Gannon. Them lads they're brilliant footballers, but they just don't have the same probably level of experience or quality that their predecessors had, the Johnny Coopers, the Philip McMahons, and that's, I would say, the fear factor and is starting to slide a wee bit from Dublin. The fear factor. Derry will go on Sunday full of confidence. Derry will not go fear. Derry will go 100% convinced they'll beat Dublin on Sunday. So they're 2 very interesting games. They're 2 very interesting.
Well, just to get back here to, we'll talk about Derry and Dublin in a second. But you're on about Mayo at the beginning there. What would you do as next day? What would you go for there now with Roscommon around the corner?
There's 3 things that you can win. You can win the National League, you can win the Connacht Championship, and you can win the All Ireland. Okay. I'm looking at the All Ireland now, and I'm sort of thinking the 5 teams who I would probably think can win it. Right, for me at the present moment in time, the 5 teams that can win it are Kerry, Mayo, Galway, Dublin, and possibly Derry, if everything fell right for them. Right, that's the 5 who I think are leading contenders for Sam Maguire. Okay, people talk about Tyrone and the bit of resurgence. I just don't think they are. Right, I just don't think they're contenders right now. Okay, but I think those 5 are. To win Connacht, they're going to have to beat Roscommon and they're going to have to beat Galway. Okay, to win a Connacht title. Okay, there's a strong chance to do that, but to win the Sam is going to be a lot more harder. And I'm just thinking, now's your chance to get a national title, bit of confidence, bit of morale, and yourself, and it's hard to beat winning national title bit of a meal that evening, 2 beers, do them no harm, bit of the Guinness, bit of time together, as you know, within a group, that's important. And here, listen, it just gives you momentum. It gives you momentum. I seen Davy Burke was sort of Davy, your old mate, was playing a bit of a card in the interview last week. He sort of said, look, Mayo took the week off this week, so it gives them a bit of a break, and we'll go up and watch them at full tilt next week. So he's more or less assuming that they'll go full tilt. But look, you may see 2 or 3 changes for both teams, but I would say deep down, McStay and Podrick Joyce will want a national title, 100%.
100%. Yeah. So am I right in saying that are Mayo on now 3 weeks in a row in terms of obviously this Sunday, Roscommon, and then possibly Galway if they got through it?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a tough schedule now. Now look at obviously they've obviously they've had their week off. They obviously against Monaghan they put out a second team. Look, I agree with you, Stevie. Like, it's very hard. You're in a rock and a hard place here in terms of trying to juggle everything. Like, realistically, like, you're gonna start 12, 13 of the starters this Sunday that you will on Sunday week here. So I thought it was a bit disappointed from the GA in terms of having it on the request was turned down for the Saturday. I just thought it was just real poor form in terms of they could have
Yeah. That's why I was saying to you, Division 1 and 4 would have been perfect. The PR both finals and get a big crowd in through the gate, and 2 and 3 would have been perfect as well.
100%. Like, so it's no, I my gut is I think the two of them, Galway and Mayo, will go fully at it, and like as I think someone said, Paul Conroy said in an interview lately that obviously there's no one in the Galway dressing room that has a National League title, so they're obviously it's still a National League title here, so it's nothing to be sniffed at. So I nearly go as far as to say that Mayo would at this stage would prefer a National League title instead of a Connacht title. If that's, I might be controversial here, but obviously what you said about the Connacht title there with the seeding now, that's going to be very important as the summer progresses here. Like, but I to be honest, I think McStay will go. The two of them will go to the full deck, and they're going to roll the dice here. If they pick up a couple of injuries, they've built a squad throughout the league campaign where they can sustain them, and it's next man up mentality here. Because if you go the other way, Stevie, I think you're just sending the wrong messages into your squad, into your team going out on Sunday. If you're resting 5 or 6 players with so-called 5 or 6, your A team will say, what does that say to the rest of your team there? Like, we're not too bothered here if we win this or not. Like, that's a dangerous kind of scenario to put yourself into. That's my opinion now.
Plus as well, I was up at it last year. Actually, I was up at the game. They got destroyed last year in the National League final. They got
sorry, yeah, and that's a huge point there. Sorry, I meant to say that. Yeah, exactly. So it's obviously what Kerry did last year, 100%. I really think the GA have let the fucking teams down here in terms of the schedule here. In terms of your reward getting to a National League final is you're out in Championship bloody 7 days after. I just and to have your request turned down then for the Saturday, 24 hours. Like, I just don't think that was much to ask. I just think it's poor form on their part. Go on.
On the flip side of that, like, you're sort of thinking to yourself, like, players probably want to be playing games. You want to play every week. I don't think one game per week is much of a fatigue issue. And now I know we look at professional sport, and you look at the Premier League and stuff like that. I know they're professional athletes. I respect that, right? I respect that. But a lot of these lads are training and preparing like professional athletes. I was chatting to a gentleman the other night, like, and we're talking about someone's a runner, like, and he was saying to me, he's training he was doing, and he says, so Sunday's his big day, half marathon on a Sunday, recovery run on a Monday, 8-mile tempo on a Tuesday, recovery run on a Wednesday. 400-meter intervals on a Thursday, rest day Friday, slow run Saturday, and then back out with and you're sort of thinking, like, it is like, sometimes we get maybe too wrapped up in the whole sort of like, it's not enough time to prepare. The only thing that I notice from a week-to-week basis is the only people who seem to be under major pressure on a week-to-week basis is the analysis. When sit down. They're analysing Galway right now. Okay, so right now, as me and you are speaking, they're looking at Power's kickouts. They're looking at Gleason's kickouts. They're looking for weaknesses in Galway's defence. Is there somewhere where we can expose that, right? But then Sunday evening, they probably don't even have time to celebrate as a management team. Straight away, McStay and Rochford and these guys are thinking, right, where's Roscommon? What are we looking at? You know, and I know that's a very demanding. It's a demanding schedule, something like that on a weekly basis. You know, and it takes people have no idea the analysis that goes into it and the research that goes into it and stuff too. And I know some groups like the player lead the analysis. You know, where we'll go into it, but I just feel, you know, as a management team, you have a responsibility yourself to go in and delve in and watch those games. Like I remember sitting and for watching, and even at club level last year, and they're like, for example, like the draws in the Down Club Championship last year, to give an example. This is only club management, you know, and maybe people might like get an insight in this, like, but the draw was on a Monday night in Down every Monday night. So on a Monday night, we knew who we were going to get the following week. I was straight on the Down TV that night, pulling off that game and, you know, having a look at who we're playing and maybe come back over another couple of their games. That's only club level. Like, it wasn't the detail at inter-county level, you know, and stuff like that. So, you know, the analysis is a very, very demanding aspect of it, and, you know, preparing. And I think that's where teams are sort of more panicky about the preparation, because as regards like a player recover from a match inside 48 to 72 hours, you know, and they'll be well fit then to go the following week again. And momentum's a lovely thing. If you're winning every week and you've got that momentum, it's hard to stop. It's hard to stop, you know.
I do agree with you in terms of players want to be played every week, but I suppose there is a balance to it in terms of maybe, I don't know, if you're on 3 weeks on and then a week off, just to, as you said, readjust there. Because from the analysis point of view, obviously they're not professionals. You know, even with the training load, you're training the evening time, you're getting home late, your sleep is affected because your adrenaline is still going from training, and then you're up the next morning for work. Like, so the recovery is huge here, and that's one thing. Obviously, you know, on about, like, even look at Johnny Sexton for Leinster. Like, you know, the main difference is for professionals, they train at 9 o'clock in the morning, 9 to 1 o'clock, and then they can go to bed at a sensible hour. Like Tom Brady used to do at 8:30 in the bloody evening. Like, so, like,
I think it affects the Connacht teams, the west of Ireland, a bit more, because a lot of players are based in the capital, you know. So, you know, well, like yourself, obviously, you would know. You having to travel across. I know, even just like there was common lads at the time, like, you know, there was only sessions were only on a Friday, Sunday, well, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, but really asking lads then to come across, you know, the one night, and then there was opportunities then throughout the year where they would do maybe a collective session in Dublin, and it's very difficult when you've got a senior panel in Dublin and you're asking them to travel 2 hours on a Wednesday night and 2 hours back, and then, you know, as you say, up for work, and then another 2 hours on a Friday, and that takes its toll on the body too, like, you know.
It does, of course, like. So if I was putting a gun to your head here now, who are you going to call Mayo or Galway on Sunday?
I've called it out. Just text with me earlier on there. We're having a discussion. I just said I'm going to go Galway. I've been very impressed with Galway, and I tell you what, I've been very impressed with. I've been very impressed with their stubbornness and their sort of what I would call, like, you know, nearly the dirty side of the game. They seem to be getting a lot better at that, you know. Now, at the same time, Mayo showed quite a bit of resilience this year as well. Like, but I just feel, I know they made a lot of changes at the weekend. You know, against Monaghan, and I just feel Galway are just starting to get their players right. They're starting to get their players back. You know, the likes of Walsh, Comer, Finnerty. They're starting to get those men back in the field, right? And I just feel there maybe be a wee bit more of a freshness about Galway this weekend, and I feel the fact as well last year. They're probably looking last year and they're thinking to themselves, fuck, we were close, but we were very, very close to the Holy Grail. And I would say that they're thinking to themselves this year, like, you know, we've unfinished business. Now, Malloy's a loss, Silk's a loss. There is men there that they'll miss this year. But I just feel that the men they've brought in and what they have coming off the bench as well, they're finishers. I like the look of Galway this year. And I know a bit.
I think I said it a couple of weeks ago. Like, Galway, no one was talking about Galway, and they're going about their business very, very efficiently and quietly. Like, to me, like, they've unearthed, as you said, there are a few players in the league that they needed last year in the final. What was separating themselves in Kerry is their bench. Like, after 68 minutes. Sorry, what?
They kept the clean sheet at the weekend against Kerry. Yes. Right, they kept the clean sheet. The week before, if you take out the high ball into the square from Ethan Rafferty, they never, you know, they kept Armagh at 6 points. You know, and I'll tell you this now. See, defensively, I think John Divilly, I had John up at the school in January, doing a coach education evening, and so impressed with John. By, you know, I think John is one of the most underrated coaches. Cian O'Neill got a lot of credit last year, but to be fair, I don't know if it was warranted. I think John Divilly now, for me, is the top man in that setup. But he's a really shrewd operator, a real good coach. One of the best coaches I've come across now, you know, on the intercounty circuit, in my opinion. Like, I think top class, and you can see even the stuff he was doing that evening, like, was really impressive. Like, so you can see that. And look, they've got the one thing, and I was looking at this earlier, and I'm gonna ask you this as a Mayo man, right? I'm looking at the 14. I'm looking at the top teams. So the five I've named, right? The five I've named: Kerry, Mayo, Galway, Derry, and Dublin. They're my five contenders, right? Every one of them have a really superstar forward. Walsh, Clifford, right? McGuigan, okay, King Kong, right? Who's Mayo's superstar? Answer me that.
Ooh.
Why did he be called a superstar forward? Like,
no, I wouldn't.
I think he's a class act. Is he at that level at the minute?
Yeah, no, like I don't doubt that, Stephen. Like, as in, like, I think, yeah. Do we have that kind of, like, Rod is still quite young in terms. No, I don't mean. I'm not trying to dodge the question here. I don't think Rod is a generational player in terms of. I think the players you've named out there are a step above that. But I do think Mayo's squad in terms of the forwards are much better than the rest of the teams you've named out there in terms of the 6 forwards and the 2 or 3 to come off the bench here. I think, to be honest, Mayo as a collective are way ahead, like, especially Derry, like Dublin, like Kerry. Like, as I said this before, like Clifford's are Kerry's biggest strength and their biggest weakness here. Like, so there's so much focus. Like, sometimes you don't need, like, you're talking like the top players here. Like Rod, or like Tommy Conroy or Ado, they're probably a step down from that. But, like, I still think, you know, that difference isn't colossal here. And the other 4 or 5 forwards, and even with Mayo's half back line, like, Mayo are scoring at a high clip here this year, and they're the biggest. I think the biggest weakness in the past, or our Achilles heels in the past, was conceding goals here. And I think you know, structurally we're definitely better here. Like, so that's, I don't know, am I dodging the question there? But go on.
No. My point is just this: last year, it was that wee bit of stardust that won the All Ireland for Kerry.
Yeah.
Clifford was successful in the final.
Yeah.
Now, Walsh probably give one of the best displays of point kicking, you know, on the losing side. You know, he walked away from the All Ireland final. Was it 10 points he got? You know, and you're sort of thinking,
Canavan in 95. Go on.
Yeah. And go back to Canavan, right? So just take Canavan for example. If you look at all the All Ireland winners, like, they've always had that sort of what you would call difference maker, you know, that man who can just do something out of the ordinary. And I think Ryan O'Donoghue can do that because he's such a skillful footballer. He's got such guile and finesse and quality. And I just feel, but I'm just thinking, Enda, you know, that superstar forward that can pull a mark out of nowhere, can create something out of nothing, or, as you say, draw 2 or 3 defenders towards him and free up someone else. You know, I just feel that could be the difference this year. In winning Sam and not winning Sam, just having that real out and out marquee man that can make things happen just out of nothing. You know, like, even like soccer terms, for example, I know, like your Erling Haaland or whatever, you know, that can just maybe do nothing for 60 minutes and then pop up and score 2 unbelievable goals out of nowhere. You know, just that superstar. And I think, you know,
I don't know. Go on. Yeah, I don't dispute that. I don't. And look, you could be right here in terms. I think you're right in terms of the 5 teams that named out there. It will be one of those teams here. But in terms of, yeah, look, with Galway and Mayo, they play a very similar style of football here. They're 2, as you said there, Matthew Tierney and I think it's Kelly, the 2 wing forwards. They're kind of like wing forwards / midfielders here, and they get back into the defensive structure. Like, and then with Mayo, they have obviously Jordan Flynn and they have Fionn McDonough. They're wing forwards / midfielders as well. Like, so it's the 2 of them kind of set up very very similar. So it'll be interesting. It'd be interesting now. I can't wait for Sunday, to be honest. I think it's going to be two cracking games. I think you're going for Galway. I think Mayo's bench could actually, if Tommy Conroy and if Killian are good to go here, I think them two could be the difference makers come Sunday, to be honest with you. But look, I obviously wouldn't be surprised if Galway nicked it by a couple of points here. It's a toss of the coin here. Let's be honest.
Who's gonna pick up Shane Walsh?
Who's going to pick up Shane Walsh? Paddy Durkin, I'd say.
Okay.
And pick up him.
Matty Ryan, David O'Connor will be interested against Conroy and Maher. I think if you shut down Conroy and Walsh, you're going a long way to nullifying Galway. I think Matty Ryan will be sent on to Conroy to do a real number on him.
Yeah, well, he'll run him into the ground. The biggest look at it, Paul Conroy here is 34, 35 years of age. So the biggest issue here for Galway is they haven't. They found Maher, but are you pinning your hopes onto him? They need who's going to come in after 55, 60 minutes when Conroy is gassing here? Because I can tell you one thing, Matty Ryan is one of the fittest players, and Jim O'Connor is certainly one of the fittest players in Ireland. So whoever he's on, he's going to be absolutely running the length of that pitch on Sunday evening. That's the other thing. To me, Galway, the only frailty I think I can see in Galway's game is the backup for midfield. I think they need, they can't be don't get me wrong here. Paul Conroy is a fantastic footballer. He could score 3 or 4 points here on Sunday, but come the last 15 minutes, the games now are 75, even 80 minutes long at this stage between stoppage time. So they do, who are their kind of different makers, impact subs are going to come.
They'll be moving pieces around that are on the board. You're probably looking at Peter to go to the middle of the field. Matthew Tierney can go to the middle of the field. One of the Kellys has played there as well in the past. I agree with you. Crow Park as well. Big factor as well when it comes to the age profile and the conditioning levels, So, as you say, I think I can't remember who described it, but someone described it. Maybe Marty Clark or something said to me one day that Mayo, he felt Mayo were the most powerful lower body team in the country. From a running perspective, they've so much running power. And if you talk about Paddy Durkin, Paddy Durkin could easily put Walsh in the back foot because Walsh, Walsh obviously wants to go that way, but he doesn't want to go that way, So does Paddy Durkin come out on Sunday and decide I'm gone, and play that aggressive front foot?
The biggest thing, Steve, I'm looking for Sunday is how structurally sound Mayo are in terms of are they giving up? It's Croker. Are they giving up goal chances? How I'm gonna obviously go to the game here. I want to see their defensive structure when they obviously the kick outs. What structure they have for that? It'd be fascinating. I think during the league they've set up in terms of they're not conceding as many goal chances. And look, I'm cutting across you there. What are you saying there?
So I was going to back up what you said there. Also, something that you mentioned a couple of weeks ago. Galway will actually ask questions of Mayo's attack because Galway will be so well organised. They'll be really defensive down. They'll play with a +1 or a +2. Yeah. And you'll have to find, as you call that, structured attack. That sort of set play. Have Mayo got that in them where they can slow the game down? They can create something. And because there's going to be moments of the game where there is control from Galway and game management from Galway. So that'll be interesting.
Look at it, and it'll become that. Look at it. This is always the All Ireland titles or finals always comes down, or semi-finals always come down to the last 5 minutes, 6 minutes of the game here. Who has it in their locker as a collective? What we're doing here as a collective? What do we want to do here? Because when you really need a score, look at that again between conceding goals and Mayo, I don't think we've had that in our locker in terms of the final 5-10 minutes. We needed a score and we couldn't get it, and we didn't know exactly what we wanted to do as a collective. So look, we'll see on Sunday. We'll move on to Derry and Dublin here. What do you make of Cluxton back anyway? What's the crack there?
It was startling. It was surprising, really surprising. Unquestionably from what you see and what you would hear very little obviously from the Dublin camp, but what you would see is very evident that when he was there, he was the on-field general, he was the on-field leader, he was Jim Galvin's lieutenant, commander-in-chief, and I would say even having his experience around the place, and I don't think it's a negative, right? I think a lot of people have sort of pushed on it as being a negative. But the goalkeeping crisis, okay, I would say he's come back from a mentoring perspective. I don't think he's going to play. I'll be shocked if he plays.
Oh, do you
I'll be
think?
shocked. I'll be shocked.
No, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know about
You,
that.
you're gonna go, you think he'll play?
I'll play. He'll play. He'll play.
Do you think?
100%. Yeah, he'll play. He'll play
Think he'll
because do
play
you know
this?
why? Do you know why? What you say?
Okay. No, go on, shout.
I think Desi is. I think Desi's under pressure. I think
Yeah.
he's trying to squeeze one last All Ireland out of this team before it's too late. I don't think, as you said before, the young boys coming through aren't at that same caliber. Don't get me wrong here; it's very hard to be at that same caliber because the team that went before them was one of the best in history. So that's not
Yeah.
a dig at them here. But I
No.
think Cluxton. I think you're right. I think the media they really loved kind of. I don't know. He's obviously not an outfield player. Like it's like Tom Brady playing at 45 here. His leadership and he has to kick out the bloody ball here. It's not like he's running up and down the pitch here. He could do this at 55 if he wants to. Let's be honest here.
It's the easy nowadays. See goalkeeping. That's the easy.
But go on.
On a serious note, I just to go back what you said about Dublin, right? And I think it was Big St. Ledger said to me actually during the week there. He's coaching in Dublin club football at the minute.
Yeah.
And he says, see that Dublin team is 6 in a row. They probably raised it to an unrealistic level. You know, everyone is trying to we're probably comparing football now and teams now to the level. They were at an extraordinary level, and from a coaching perspective, they were at an extraordinary level. You know, probably a level we'll never ever see again from a coaching perspective, you know, and there was so many different facets of their game. There's no point in getting into it now because that's not the team we're talking about on Sunday. But it's probably unfair for this team to be compared to that team, you know, because the quality that you had, the strength and depth, and I'll be honest with you as well, I think Jim Gavin probably didn't get enough credit for keeping a lid on the Eagles and keeping a real fucking, you think about it, Enda, you know, it could very easily have been a dressing room that would have got out of control very easily from an ego perspective, the money, the fame, you know, and all that was kept very, very lid on it from Gavin. I thought Gavin did a superb job in keeping that very, very grounded. And probably the one man that went against the grain for him, you know, your old clubmate David, Connolly, he's went against the grain of the team ethos. And Jim wasn't too long pushed him to the side, you know, and that was, you know, that was interesting, you know, that was interesting that you know,
I don't think he's ever put. I think Jim now. Go on.
I don't know. I think Jim was content if he was there. He was happy. If he wasn't there, I'd say he was happy enough. I don't think he was knocking his door down, you know. And I think that was a big thing, you know, that he was probably so systematic and everything was so, you know, it has to be, you know, it's team first. Whereas Damon maybe would have got a ball and tried something with the outside of the foot that was against the grain or didn't sit in with their stats, because Connolly was probably one of the most talented footballers we seen. He's absolute phenomenal footballer, but maybe just that, you know, that maverick. Maybe maverick's the right word to use. Maybe Gavin just didn't want that type of maverick in his team.
But he did go back to him in 2019 for the 5 in a row, which was very surprising. Which I thought was the pressure coming onto it. I look at it. Believe it or not, German is probably one of the. In terms of being a team player, he's actually, I'm not just saying this now, definitely not just saying this. In terms of being selfless, he's definitely more about the collective than he is about the individual. The way he plays the game. Yes, obviously, when you're on about the Maverick there, obviously the debacle in Carlow that year certainly didn't help, and his off-field stuff certainly didn't help with his kind of the public kind of figure he is like. But in terms of on the pitch, definitely. Jim would always say that he'd always say that in terms of he'd have no issue if he had an issue with Jim, he wouldn't have brought him back in 2019, Stevie. Do you know what I mean? It's just the fact he was a step above what was there, and they're going for 5 in a row. To be honest, the other egos, the likes of Philly McMahon, how he managed to hit the likes of him within the squad would be the one person I'd be questioning in terms of trying to keep them all happy together, because. You know,
would he have been disruptive?
Look, I've never been in the dressing with him, but look, I've heard reports. We'll put it like that. I've heard, certainly would have found it hard maybe to play with them. Yeah, I definitely would, to be honest. I don't know enough about it within that dressing, but I think you're right in terms of Jim definitely did not get the credit he deserved in terms of holding it all together. When you go for 5 in a row and have that level of success, and there's always going to be boys pushing the boundaries here, and but the key thing was he had 30 players, he had a second team of 15 that if you were fucking acting out here, okay, that's fine. You'll be sitting on the line here beside me and next man up. So that was the key difference. And you saw that then in 21. You saw that in 21 when the boys and the squad wasn't there. And it just them fine margins, CV, like it does come back to bite you if you don't have that strong squad to beat that. It's like complacency is like a virus. If the top players aren't being challenged or a threat of being challenged, well then you're going to play within yourself, and it's human nature. You'll do just enough, and you need that fucking lad really pushing you on and in the second 15 to really drive the team on, the squad on, so to get to that next level. But yeah, look, it's with Cluxton here. I think you're right. Like I think it's positives here. Like obviously David O'Hanlon probably won't be too happy if he's dropped, but he's obviously he's only 23 here. I think.
I think for the goalkeepers, for anybody within the panel, like particularly some of those younger lads that I mentioned as well, too, the likes of Lee Gannon and Lorcan O'Dell and Eman Newcombe and stuff, the cornerback, like for all those lads too as well, just to have his presence around the changing room, and experience is obviously going to be. I'd say it's going to be a hugely positive thing, and I would say maybe what you might find now is the likes of Fenton and Con and Kilkenny and these guys that are, familiar face back in the change rooms that they've soldiered with, the 6 in a row, all of a sudden, the memories come back. But I suppose we're talking about Jim Gavin, but it probably wasn't easy for Desi either. Like people forget as well when he came in his first year. When he came in his first year, he won an All Ireland. He won an All Ireland, and that's probably forgotten about now. No one actually remembers that, because they were beaten last year, obviously, and everyone has obviously, calling for Desi's head. They were beaten with an injury time free kick from about 60 metres by Shawnee O'Shea.
And missing their best forward.
They could easily have won that game, right? And they could easily have beaten Galway in the final and won another All Ireland. That's the fine margins. A kick of the ball. And I would say, despite the fact they're in Division 2 this year, I would say a large part of Dublin's preparation this year has been tapered and tailored round the summer and not the league. I think they knew deep down themselves that they were going to get out of Division 2, right? I don't think they would have expected to lose to Derry, right? But all of a sudden this weekend, if they beat Derry, they're Division 2 champions. All is forgotten, and they're coming into the championship bouncing, and I think it's an interesting game this Sunday. I think Derry, this is a big test for Derry. This is their biggest test since Galway, obviously, last year. And it's in Croke Park where, they fell out of it last year in the second half. Whether the whole fucking Hawkeye debacle at halftime had an impact on them, coming out not knowing what the score was. All those wee things can play in your head, even though it was only about, but the Arse did fall out of it. They got a wee bit disjointed. I'll be very, very keen to see Derry this year or this Sunday against Dublin, and very, very keen to see if they can actually put the wrongs right from last year's semi-final nightmare.
I'd be interested to see Dublin's squad here, as in is McCaffrey? Mannion came on the last day. McCaffrey, I don't know, is he back? What's the story?
Is he carrying a knock? Is he?
Yeah, look, I still think, and this you could have said it there, with Ulster and Connacht, they're going to be. They seem to be, their schedule seems to be obviously more intense than the Leinster and Munster team. The Leinster and Munster teams definitely, Kerry and Dublin definitely have an advantage here because they've.
The talk is Kerry's away for 10 days, are they? To Portugal, 10 days.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say, Stevie, players do games every week, but management don't, because they can't instill what they want in terms of coaching wise, what they want to be working on. It's very hard to go, as you know yourself, you've gone through the mill here. It's very hard to, if you're going week on week here, in between games, you're tipping around here. You're not exactly going full leather.
Yeah, you see, from a coaching perspective, and like contact time is huge, right? Contact time
Yeah,
is priceless, right? So, what is your contact time? And as you talk about professional sport, if you're a Premiership team, you play on a Sunday. Man United
yeah,
play Liverpool on a Sunday, and they play Newcastle the following Saturday. They're back
yeah,
in Monday morning, and all of a sudden they've got contact time every single day in the lead up to
yeah,
the game. You know, the
yeah,
control of the play. You play Sunday, you mightn't see the players to Tuesday. You know, then on Tuesday you've got that small contact time. S&C coach needs a spit. Somebody else needs their bit. You know, your contact time is limited. You might see them Thursday then, and then you might not see them to the game on the Saturday, Sunday, because ultimately the players have lives too, and it's a
yeah,
big demand for them to be out of the house. You know, 3 or 4 nights a week. Obviously, you know, with travel and stuff like that. So, totally agree with you. Contact time is huge, it's priceless, and that's why the likes of Kerry, for example, if they're getting 10 days in Portugal, like the contact time they have, the coaching they can do, the cohesion that they can build, you know, the conditioning that they, it's priceless. It's absolutely priceless. Like it's just like it's such a lopsided. We are one of the most obscure countries in the world. By we've got a fantastic product. I said this before in the show. We've got 32 teams. We've got the perfect number of teams that teams are crying out for, competitions are crying out for, and we somehow managed to turn it into one of the most lopsided, maddest draws you've ever seen in your life. Like, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And look, I think regardless of that, I think Derry will go full tilt on Sunday. I think Dublin will go full tilt on Sunday.
yeah,
Whatever doubts we have over Galway and Mayo, this will be a humdinger. This will be two teams going at it to try and win
yeah,
at heck. And I said it on Sunday after the National League had ended. It's exactly what Gallagher wanted. It's exactly
yeah,
what he wanted. He wanted a crack at the Dubs in Croke Park. And listen, Enda, I'll be honest with you. Like Derry are probably not getting enough credit for the work that Gallagher's done. Westmeath had a freak result against Antrim, right? A freak result. They scored 7 or 8 goals, and they ended up with a plus 54 score difference, right?
yeah,
Derry have a plus 51 score difference. Okay, a score difference of 51 points, right? And one of the best defensive records in the country, if not the best. There's no one near that. The next team are plus 32 or something like that, right? There's no one near that, Derry. I don't think Rory Gallagher gets the credit for what he's done offensively to Derry. You know, people associated Derry a number of years ago with this defensive and, you know, a lot of bodies behind the ball. That's grand. But their offensive play has developed so well. And for me, you know, they're one of the most creative, you know, attacks in the country from a structure point of view. The goal chance they create, you know, the way they get width, depth, height into their attack, you know, their cut runs, their decoy runs, you know, their strike runners coming from late. They're so well drilled, but so well drilled. And you look as well, like the likes of Paul Cassidy, they're having a wonderful season. Patrick Cassidy, McGrogan, you know, players that aren't household names are brilliant footballers. And then obviously you have your wee bit of stardust with your Ethan Doherty, your Wiggins, and your Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers moved to the middle of the field last year for the Ulster game against for the Ulster final against Donegal was a masterstroke, put Murphy in the back foot, you know, and he's obviously continued to play there for them in the middle of the field, you know, along with Glass. So listen, Derry won't be a million miles away, I'll tell you.
no,
You know?
and you're not about there being lopsided. Like, if put it like this, if Mayo, Galway, Derry were all playing at Croke Park every single league game, like, what kind of advantage would that be in terms of, you know, trying to? So that's why I really
Yeah,
have a bee in my bonnet with the Croke Park thing. I just think it's mental how we allow it to happen in terms of. I said before, if I'm a young lad breaking into the Dublin squad here, like, I know my angles within about 5 or 6 games in Croker. Like, it being, as you said, contact time. If you're playing in the
yeah,
pitch, like, there's home and away games in soccer for a reason here. I just think it's, you know, them small
yeah,
margins. I just think it's mental that I'd look at Derry. At the end of the day, I'd really look forward to see Derry in Croker this Sunday, just to see how they adapt, how they play the Dubs. Will they push a bit more on the kick out? Will they sit back? When will they push, or when will they sit back? As you said, the offensive game there, the way they get width and depth, and the way they cut. Dublin will ask all the questions after them. So this, to be honest,
yeah.
Stevie, this is the exact acid test I want to see as well. See if Derry are really All-Ireland contenders.
Yeah, yeah, and we're Dubliner at, you know, because this will
Yeah,
tell us more.
yeah,
But like the halftime score again, Louth was 4-3, and watching the highlights, Louth opened them up 4 or 5 times for great goal
yeah,
chances, 4 or 5
yeah,
times, you know. And with all due respect to Louth, that's without Samuel Roy. Like if Louth are opening you up, there's no question that Derry will open you up. And that's the thing. And Croke Park, people talk about, Derry can't play that way in Croke Park. I think that's nonsense, absolute nonsense. Like I think Croke Park. But I'm serious. I think Croke Park is it's a familiarity thing rather than a. It's actually a familiar. It's being familiar around and just being familiar with it. It's mad what it does to teams, and particularly teams that are not used to playing there.
Yeah, of course. But
because a lot.
You're pulling up to the first time you see Croke Park, it's like something around the Coliseum in Rome. Like it's a very impressive structure here. Like, and obviously when you're inside the stadium, I remember the first time I got out playing the warm up. It was one of their first. The team wasn't there for ages in 2011, and sure, all the boys just wanted to kick scores the first 5 minutes. But honest to God, we're all acting like fucking 10-year-olds here, and like we take the scraps that Croke Park give to us here, once in a blue. Obviously, if you're more successful, you get there more often. But it's just I'll never forget that, because I was just laughing at myself at the time, because the whole squad of 30 were literally just launching balls for about 5 turns, getting as many kicks and the goals as possible here. But look, it's
we pulled up on a lovely summer's day before the Leinster semi-final in Laois years ago, and the boys spotted a few of their mates outside Quinn's. We had 3 or 4 boys that were looking off.
Oh my gosh!
No, but hey, it's a magical place, and as I said, I was actually talking to one of the Fermanagh lads there during the week, big Ryan Jones, captain. Obviously, we're going to talk about Division 3 final. Ryan's a stalwart there, kicked 3 or 4 points the weekend. Great fellas. I said to him, no bad night in Croke, or any night in Croke Park's a good night. When you're going there is for a national final and stuff. And listen, Fermanagh will give Cavan their fill of it on Saturday night. And for me, Kieran Donnelly's a very, very astute manager. I thought Down, now to be fair, I think with Laverty and the bounce we would have got off Connor, I thought Down would have been very, very close to promotion. The 2 games, the only 2 games they lost were Fermanagh and Cavan, and they both well, particularly the Fermanagh game was lost very narrowly. But Fermanagh, for me, have been very, very impressive in that division. They've gone about their business very quietly. They're a very, very astute management team. They also now have a couple of forwards that are a real handful. They're probably over reliant years ago, obviously, on the likes of Quigley and the likes that maybe reliant from set pieces or dead balls. But all of a sudden, from open play, the likes of Darren McGurn and Ulton Kem, who was in the team of the week there at the weekend as well. Young Josh Lago Ellis, who come through their underage structure as well. There's some fine footballers. And, for once, people probably associate Fermanagh, with being sort of stubbornness and hard to break down. But Croke Park might actually suit some of those young lads, some of those forwards that they have. The open spaces might suit them, because to go to Breffni at the weekend, to be hit with two hammer, they had to win. Now, the fact that Down beat Offaly got them promoted anyway, but they didn't know that. They had to win. And to go to Breffni and to fall, to have a couple of hammer bows of goals, that Cavan scored against the run of play, and still have that stubbornness and that resilience to come back. I think there'd be a sting in the tail Saturday. I think Fermanagh could end up winning this final on Saturday.
Yeah, it'd be great for exposure here in terms of, what do they want to do? You saw Louth, they've gone up through the divisions here. It's obviously a stepping stone in terms of, Cavan and Fermanagh. They're kind of tipping around Division 3 and Division. I can't remember Fermanagh. When's the last time Fermanagh in Division 2? It's a long time.
They were in Division 2 a few years back. They were a few years back. They were probably unlucky to be relegated. They were very, very that a couple of, but they were probably playing a very attritional brand of football. This year they've actually, they've been able to put scores on the board. Something that Fermanagh probably haven't been associated with. Like, for example, against Down, what did they score against Down? Was it 214? 214, the other day, Gavin, I think they rattled up, whatever it was, 114, 115, whatever it happened to be. They're actually putting up big scores now, which Fermanagh were probably always under Gallagher and under Ricey. Were probably associated with, a 12-10 or an 11-8. Now, all of a sudden, there is that element of scoring. There's a scoring threat throughout their team, which is a big thing. And they've some fine defenders as well. They've got really good defenders, the Collins, stuff like that. And, hey, listen, they'll give Cavan their fill of it. They really will.
Are you going to call it? Are you going to say Fermanagh? So are you calling Fermanagh?
I'm going to call Fermanagh by the minimum. Yeah, I'm going to say it's going to be a very tight game. Fermanagh to nick it. Yeah.
Jeez, I think we're going opposite here. I think I've Mayo Division 1. You've Galway. I'm saying,
Aye, but hey, listen, Varley. If we were to go into the archives here and dig out my predictions for the year and your predictions for the year,
I'd say I'm going to go with Cavan. To be honest,
do you know what the mad thing is? I'm predicting here Galway and for Manitou, and then when we're doing the teams at the weekend, I'll probably put in Cavan and
put on the betting slip.
Oh, shit.
We've literally only 5 minutes left here. Here, quickly on to Division 4. What I thought Division 4. I was pissed off. Geez, Laois and Leitrim. Geez, they were very unlucky. Well, they were unlucky. Like obviously, Leitrim only lost Sligo by a point.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I have absolutely no sympathy for Laois at all, and no remorse for them staying in Division 4. They beat me 3 times in the 1 year, man. I'll tell you what, it was
really.
For fuck's sake, they were a pain in the backside for me for 2 seasons, but they were my nemesis. But no, listen, look, hey, they've fallen to the wayside, and it is sad too, and because when you actually look at Leinster football, like the likes of Laois and Kildare and me, it's worrying. Like it's actually quite worrying for Leinster in general, you know. But listen, brilliant for
Sligo, Wicklow, yeah.
I tell you what, really good for Sligo, and I tell you why. Tony McEntee's been there 3 years, and you know, I would say I'm not retiring him here on the show, but this could be Tony's last year, for example. You know, 3 years is normally a normal cycle in their county level. So if he hadn't got promoted,
he would be gone. He would be
years going, you know, what was that? But now there's something there, you know. And I tell you what, you know, the tragedies that have happened in Sligo as well, and in the last couple of years and stuff, and some of the sad stories. Like I think it's brilliant for the county. It's given the county a real good lift. And I'll tell you what, Enda, I know from speaking to a couple of the lads in around Roscommon, Padraig Mitchell and that, who do a lot of work on their age level in Roscommon. Sligo do a lot of good work. Sligo have a real good underage structure in place. They've got a lot of good underage teams coming through, you know. And
some here getting to the cup. Well, sorry.
Yeah, they're pushing hard, as you know. And listen, it's probably difficult for the likes of Sligo and Leitrim because they're coming up against Mayo and Galway and Roscommon every other year, and it's probably hard. But listen, your old mate Andy, year 2, you know, he obviously got a great bounce in year 2, and I would say he's raging. Like I'd say deep down, he's just got it that he didn't get promoted, you know, because I think with a couple of minutes to go, they were up, you know, and then up.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Sligo, you know, so but no, still, listen, the reality of the situation is this too, and you know, you can only work with what you have. I would say, you know, from a squad depth point of view and things like that, the game's coming so fast probably had an impact on Leitrim as well, you know.
So with Wicklow, it was the tiebreaker between Wicklow and Laois, wasn't it? So Wicklow bet Laois, and that's how they got promoted. They finished on the same points, I think.
Yeah, well, that was a horrific result for Laois. Like Laois were cruising that night, absolutely cruising that night. Like, you know, I don't agree with the head-to-head, Enda. I don't agree with the head-to-head. You know, I was in the tail end of a bad one in 2019, like relegated with superior score difference to 3 teams above us. Like there's 3 teams above us, superior score difference, and we get relegated in the head-to-head. You know, because of a game we'd lost, and it is. I think it's slightly unfair because you're not being rewarded over the course of 7 games. You're being rewarded for a one-off game. You know, I don't think it's a particularly nice rule. I don't think it's a particularly nice rule. But for me on Saturday, I just feel that sort of winter type football probably suited Wicklow. You know, a couple of games on Ockram and heavy pitch stuff. I think Sligo have better forwards, and you know, I feel that Tony McEntee in the year 3 probably has a far better idea of strengths are and where his weaknesses lie in comparison to Oisín. And I think Sligo will win this, you know, by 5 or 6 points, to be honest.
I think so too. I'm going for Sligo as well here, to be honest with you. I think it's not a harsh analysis in terms of saying Tony probably would have been like, I suppose if you're a manager yourself after 3 years, if you didn't get promoted, if you don't see any progress, you know, as you said, there is a natural life cycle. This is not a dig at Tony here at all, like, but there is a natural life cycle to management setups, like, and players need a fresh voice. Maybe you need to step away as well.
Particularly in Division 4, because I think the standard in Division 4 this year now has dropped a little bit. There's no standout. We said this at the start. I said this at the start of the season. We struggled to sort of pick two teams because there's no standout team. You know, in Division 4 every year a team comes down. There's a standout team that normally wins 6 or 7 out of 7. Didn't really happen this year. You know, obviously Sligo became the standout team, but Sligo have had 3 years now in Division 4, so it was obviously a crucial time for them to get promoted. You know.
Yeah, no, big time. No, I suppose the force, like it was Sligo, Wicklow, Laois and Leitrim. They're the 4 kind of teams battling out. The other, obviously, Waterford, London, and your old team, Carlow. They're kind of in the doldrums now, and
Look, it's anything, you know, your underage structure. I'll tell you what the big issue is in Carlow, and it's probably an issue in a lot of counties, and people probably put a value on this. The volume of club football. Turlock O'Brien, Turlock's back working with his own club, Éire Óg, who were one of the Leinster kingpins years ago. You know, Éire Óg were one of the most famous clubs in Ireland, contesting Leinster titles, but they're only playing, like, it's the maddest structure ever ended. They play a couple of league games in April and May, right? And then they don't play again until August. Like, it's mad. Like, there's no football over the summer for those lads. You know, there's no relegation in the leagues, so the league games don't matter. There's a load of non-fulfillments. There's a load of no-shows. So players aren't being exposed to football. I take my own county here Down, and I've always said it. Down leagues have one of the best structures in Ireland, right? We play every Friday night. We play 18 league games from the middle of April right through to the middle of August. Club footballers play every single Friday night, and it's brilliant. There's 700 lads getting football every Friday night, you know, on a regular basis, and it's critical. It's absolutely critical for the development of any county. There's the lads in Carlow, for example, will not play, and then they'll play a championship round robin where they'll play one championship game every 3 weeks or something, and it must be wild frustrating, like, you know, wild frustrating. Like, so, and if you, it's like Wexford, you know, Wexford with the hurling and the football championship. If you're not growing the game at club level, what chance have you got at county level? You have to grow the game at club level, at county level. You know,
that's mental. That's what you said there about Carlow club football. That's mental to me in terms of how he's supposed to. To me, that's just promoting America to the young lads. Right, off you go for the summer, lads. We'll see you back in August here. We don't really give a shit. But anyway, we're about to go. We'll see you next week. It'll be interesting to see what the crack is come Sunday evening with the 4 games. But anyway, good chat, Stevie. We'll talk to you next week.
Good catch up. Good man. Gentlemen.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, mate. Bye.
Bye.